Welcome to this lesson on editing your surf images. This is where a lot of the magic takes place and should not be underestimated. But over decades of doing surf photography and editing all these images, I've narrowed down a streamlined workflow specifically for surf images. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through my workflow on Adobe Lightroom. That's the platform I choose to use. There's a lot of other platforms out there that I'm sure are just as good, but I'm quite familiar with Lightroom, and I found that it really does well for surf photography. And so this is what we're going to do. You've come off the beach, you've taken your disk out of your camera, you plugged it in the computer, and you've uploaded hundreds of files, maybe even thousands of files. On a good 2-hour shoot with a good surfer, I may come back with 1,000+ images. Obviously, I'm not going to use every one of those images, so I'm not going to edit every one of those images. But what I like to do is go through and pick out the best images on a quick preview. And then I do batch editing. I don't try to edit 100, 200 images all at once. I'll usually limit about 25 to 40 images at a time. That allows me to work efficiently and yet not bog down my computer. So once I edit those, I will save those into my edited file on the computer to save and move on to the next batch of 40 or so. That seems to be a nice number, workable number. And I recommend that you develop your images in batches as well. So on Lightroom, you see all the images that you've imported in there. You're going to go through each sequence and you're going to say, maybe it's a top turn. They come up the wave, click, 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 click. Fins out and come down, big spray. You might find one or two of those that you think are the best images, and be critical. Only take the best ones. Click on those, import those into Lightroom, and there we have about 40 to work with. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you my Lightroom workflow, and I'm going to share screens with you here, and here we go. Okay, I'm down here in the lower corner where I belong, and what we're looking at here is my actual library, and I've just uploaded, 7 images here down on the lower left, probably right where my face is showing. I'll kind of click through these quickly. I see a top turn. You know what? I like number 3 there. And so to start the process, I'm going to go up to the very top, and I'm going to hit, here we go. On the right-hand side, I'm going to hit Develop. And this opens up my development modules on the right-hand side. And let me close out of this. So that's out of the way. You see a little bit better. On the right-hand side here, where my cursor is, we have all of these slide toggles that will allow you to edit these pictures exactly how you want. I don't know how familiar you are with these, but we're going to go through the ones that I think work really well for surf photography. So first off, remember we were shooting our images in RAW. That means they're unformatted. And that means all the information, all the detail is captured in your image, and you just need to format it and get going. And so that is what we're working with, is a RAW file. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my image that I like, which was number 3 here, and I'm going to create a virtual copy. That's a right click, and then on the menu you'll find Create Virtual Copy. Why do I do this? I then have my unedited raw photo I can go back to at any time, do a different edit, improve on the edit, whatever I want to do, and now I'm working with a clean image. Always save the images that you want, because you never know when you're going to go back, and maybe a surfer wants a full sequence of them. And in a slightly different color tone or different edit, you can do them all at once. So always save your raw files, create a virtual copy, and work off the virtual copy. All right, now, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the right-hand side of Lightroom. And where it says Basic, we're going to start there. And below that, there's these 4 little squares on the right. And we're going to click on those. And that is your color profile or your profile browser. And there's a lot of options in. There's faithful, there's landscape, neutral, portrait, scroll down, standard, and monochrome. Those are the basics. Below that, there's some artistic ones. I generally don't use those. I like to create these myself and not rely on a kind of a one-size-fits-all editing. So since we shot our images in landscape, we're going to click on camera landscape. That's the way you saw it when you shot it, because you were shooting on a landscape. So let's use landscape on the right side here, and then we're going to close the profile browser. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go right down here to exposure, because as you can see, this picture is a little bit dark and I want to work with it, but I have to see it a little bit better. So I'm going to lighten this up a little bit better to get a little more color so I know what I'm working with. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the sliders. And here we have the calibration. Calibration is a cool little tool that I didn't find out about for 10 years, and then I started using it on all of my images. This allows you to saturate certain color tones in your pictures. And for surf photography, as you can imagine, blues and greens are our key colors because of the ocean. And so what I do is I go down to blue primary on saturation, and I move this up a little bit. And as you can see, our image starts to become bluer. The blues are enhanced. If I go all the way to the top, it's a little bit too blue. So I'm going to come down here maybe around 60. I like that tone. That looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to start scrolling up on the right-hand side until I get to lens correction. Lens correction is something that I click on, whether it's a surf image or fine art image, flowers, animals, people, whatever. I always click these two items. One is remove chromatic aberration. I'm going to click on that. What is chromatic aberration? Sometimes light bends. You remember when you were learning about prisms, when you were young, and you saw how you could look through one part of a prism and you could see the colors of a rainbow, blue, green, all those, purple. Those are different tones of light, and they will show up on weird spots on your image. Lots of times you'll get them on sharp edges. So maybe you have like a building with a sky behind it, and it might pick up this like aberration of color. Well, you click on this little clear aberration and it will take that out for the most part, which is really nice. Okay, the next thing I always click on is enable profile corrections, which is right below that. On this image, I clicked it and it didn't make a lot of difference on this particular image because this was shot with a very long focal lens. I think it was a 500 millimeter on this one. The closer you get, the more your image will bend a bit, and this flattens it out a little bit. Not entirely, but it helps to give the more accurate view and a non-bending view. So those I always do on my images. Now I'm going to go back up to the top. So the very next thing I'm going to do, and this is a pet peeve of mine. There are a lot of photographers out there who publish images or post images with a crooked horizon line. And to me, there's nothing worse than seeing a crooked horizon line in a picture. Everything's just off. It just doesn't feel good. So we're going to go here to the second item above basic called the crop overlay. And we're just going to click that once. And it's going to give us some grids here. And I'm going to take my cursor and move it to the right of the box until it shows these two little arrows and a curve. And I'm going to left click, and you're going to see a smaller set of grid bars. And you can see now that my horizon is not lined up with those straight line bars. It's crooked. So I'm going to straighten this out. Just eyeball it. That's fine, so that we always have the ocean and the horizon to work on. And see, it's made a little bit of a change here on my picture, which straightens everything out and looks so much better. Now, I like the the pebbles, the beach pebbles here at Trussell's. But there's a little too much in this picture. So I'm going to cut out some of this in the bottom. Now, if I just scroll up, I'm going to ruin the ratio of my image. So what I want to do is I want to hit Shift and then click on the bar and move it up. This way my ratio remains intact. So I leave a little bit of the pebbles below. And I got a lot of sky on this one. My surfer's pretty far out, so I'm going to bring this down a bit as well. Kind of like right about here. Now, let's look where our surfer is. She's in the middle box here. That's okay, but for the eye, we really like to see the subject matter on the thirds, on the crosshair of the thirds. Here, 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 here. It's more pleasing for the eye. It also directs your eye into the direction that your subject is moving. So I'm going to just put my cursor right on my surfer there, and I'm going to move the whole image right over here till she is, let's put her shoulders back, right square the back of her shoulders, right on that left third line. And then I'm going to hit enter. Now, what do we have here? We have a straight horizon line. We have our surfer in the left third of the image, and this allows us to see where she's looking, where she's going as she's moving down the surf line. It's more dramatic than placing her right in the middle. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to this bar here that says dehaze. Dehaze is a wonderful little tool. Believe it or not, there's always some haze in the air, and this allows you to pull some of it out. So I'm going to click on it, left click, and slide it to the right. And I'm going to go way too far just so you can see what happens here. As I go farther to the right, all the what we would call haze, but it's also soft tones get taken out of your picture. So that's really ugly. But let's go back to where we were. That's a little hazy now. Now that you can see the difference, we're going to just do a little bit of dehaze, maybe 21. I kind of like that. That looks pretty good. All right. We have a toggle here called Vibrance, and Vibrance brings out the colors in your picture. This sometimes works really well. Depends on how much sunlight you have. The more sunlight you had when you shot, the more the blues are blue and the greens are green. So let's up the vibrance just a touch. Again, if I do it too far, you're going to get a very oversaturated picture, which is not good. So go back to 0. Let's find a spot in here that's got a little bit more vibrance. I like that. Looking pretty good. Now, I'm going to zoom in on our surfer here. I'm going to click on her here, and we can see that her hand, because of the way we've enhanced some of these colors, is coming in really red, kind of a red-orange. A little too much. As I said, shooting in landscape increases blue, green, and red, your primary colors. And so with skin tones, you have to be careful with that because you don't want lobsters out there surfing. So I'm going to go back to our toolbar on the right, and we're going to scroll down until we get to Color Mixer. The Color Mixer allows us to attack individual colors. We can do reds, orange, yellow, green, etc. Now, skin is generally several tones of colors together. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little crosshair one time right here. We're going to bring it right on her hand. And then we're going to click it, and we're going to scroll. We're going to use our little roller on our mouse, and we're going to start scrolling down. See what happens to her hand? We could take all the color out. All the yellows and oranges are going to take it out. That's a little too much. So kind of right about here looks good, I'd say. Go back to the crosshair and click it again. Pull back to our image. Now her skin looks the right color. She's not a lobster out there. Okay, so the next thing I like to do on most of my images is sharpen up my surfer a little bit. Now we can go over here to the right where we have a masking button. It's this round button that has a little dashes around it. And there's various options under masking. You can use a brush and you could brush her all in. You can use a linear gradient, radial gradient. All these are great options and things to use in the future. But in recent years, Lightroom and Adobe have come up with an AI tool, essentially, that allows you to just click on subject. It should mask our entire subject. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, see here, everything in red is the mask. And let me zoom in a bit here to about 66 and move my surfer right in there to see where our mask hit. So we missed the part of the board here. And so under our mask, we can just click add. And I know this pop-up's not going to show on your screen, but it's there. It's showing the mask that you're on. Go ahead and click brush, and then you can just brush in the additional parts that were missed on the first go round. Now you can also hit subtract, hit brush again, and subtract parts like this little part of the sky between her head and her arm were included in the mask. I don't like that. Same as her hand. And there's a little overflow under her arm and next to the board. And you can just erase the parts that are masked that you don't want to be masked. That's kind of a funny word for me to say. All right. Once you have your mask set, any changes we now make will be just to this part of the picture. And I like to scroll down to see right here where it says mask 1. All the controls all the way down to here are contained in mask 1. I'm going to go down to where it says clarity, and I'm going to move my slider just a bit to the right to sharpen up the surfer. And then further down under detail, there's a sharpness. I'm going to move this a tad, maybe to 15. What that does is that takes edges, like any edge to edge. It's just going to make it a little bit more crisp. This is going to allow her to pop out a little bit out of the image. And then back up within mask 1, I like to do this almost always. I expose the surfer slightly more than the rest of the picture because the eye, when you look at an image, the eye goes to whatever's brightest. So here we're great because we have a white surfboard already, but we're going to expose her a little bit more, not a lot, just a touch. And then I'm going to go back to my fit so we can see what she's looking like. Looking good. Okay, I like that mask. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to accept it. And then I'm looking at this picture and seeing what else we can do. Well, I think the wave has some nice white lines to it. And one thing that we can do with surf photography that works really well is we can enhance the whites, bring out the whites. On this basic slider, right under highlight shadows, we have whites. So let's click on that and move it to the right. And that's going to brighten up your picture without increasing the exposure. We're just doing the whites. So there's a lot of white in waves. And see what happened there? Let me go back. That's what it was like. And now we're going to brighten up the whites. Now things are really starting to pop, which is very good. That's a little bit too much, so I'm going to tone that down a little bit. And that looks really like she's really getting in a dynamic spot. The waves, the little spots are showing, which is really cool. Now, from here, we can kind of fine tune different things. I see that at the bottom of this image, we have, these cobblestones from Trussels, which are a great feature. I like it in the foreground because we're using a long lens. That foreground's out of focus, but it grounds the picture and also gives a little bit of a story. For those of you that surf Southern California, you can pretty readily identify where we're shooting with this just this inclusion of the cobblestones, the suggestion. But they came out a little dark. So what I'm going to do is go back to the mask button, and I could use a brush, or what I'm going to choose to use is a linear gradient. And a linear gradient, I'm going to click here in the middle of my screen. I'm going to start pulling up. What this does is this allows you to fade in edits into this area. So you see at the bottom where there's the red dot, the top where there's the white dot. The white, nothing's going to happen. The red, you're going to get 100% of whatever changes you make. And this spread from bottom to top is going to fade in that change. So what I'm thinking is that these cobblestones should be a little warmer feel. So I'm going to go to temperature here. And I wouldn't want to do this on my whole image, just the part I want to warm up. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to start moving this to the right. And you can see if I go too far, it gets a little too red, but I like this. And maybe we'll even move the exposure up a tad and a little bit of, okay, that looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, things are looking good. Now, let's see, another important aspect that is often overlooked by images that I see on social media are dust spots or water spots. Those happen, especially at the beach. There's a lot of, breeze blowing around. There's moisture in the air. There's sand. There's fine grit. And you may get some dust spots on your image. Always clear those off. They really make the difference between a good image and a not so good image. So up at the top, right above a basic bar, you're going to see a little remove icon, a little eraser. Let's click on that. You have three options. You have a remove, which is good for removing objects. You have an eraser. You have a Band-Aid, which is the healing, removes for spots. And you can also use clone, which you can take a part of the picture and put it on another part. For our purposes, we're going to go with the heal, the Band-Aid. Make sure your feather is all the way up at 100%, and that kind of spreads the healing so you don't have sharp edges on the parts you're healing. Now, you may not be able to see these spots on your screen. I have a very high resolution screen that I edit from. I can certainly see some, but to help that, there's a tool down here called Visualize Spots. And I'm going to click on Visualize Spots. And what happens is it turns it to black and white, and the contrast spots are going to show up. If we use this Visualize Spots slider, we're going to move that to the right, and you can start seeing all the pixels in the sky. And if you put it however high you need to see the spots, what we're looking for, we're not looking for spots like this. These are actually water spray coming off the surfer. We're looking for broken spots in the sky. And we're just going to click on those. And what they're going to do is remove dust particle spots. Click on these. It's so easy to do. And we'll get rid of those. So let's remove our visualize spots and hit enter. All the spots in the sky are taken care of and they're gone. Super easy. Make sure you do that on all pictures. You don't want to miss out on that. Okay. Some final edits to this one. It's looking really good, but I kind of think the green, which I really like the color of this wave. It's one of those beautiful days where the sun's out so well. I think I want to work with the green color here a little bit. So we're going to go back down to Color Mixer, and we're gonna hit on our little crosshair again. We're going to bring it over here and find a spot of color that you like. Click on that, and then let's start increasing that a little bit and see what happens. Now it's got some blue and some green. I'm going to really exaggerate it. So you can see I've moved the blue-green sliders up. So I'm going to bring them back down to where they were, and I think right about there. So what I've done is I increased the aqua color 17 and the blue by 11. If you get too blue, you can always move the blue back down a little bit. And, interestingly, that didn't pick up any green. That was all aqua. So that's our main color there. You want to boost the aqua without the blue. Really dynamic looking picture now. Lots of color. There's action. The white's popping. The surfer's standing out really well. And I like what we've done. Now, another little trick that works really well on your surf images is to scroll down on the tools here. And we're going to go all the way down to effects. And on effects, there's a section called post-crop vignetting. What is vignetting? Vignetting is where you take the edges of the picture and you either darken them or lighten them, but not the middle. And what does that do? That directs the eye of the viewer toward the middle of your picture. I almost never use white vignetting. It like fogs out the side. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. It's kind of a funky view. So on the vignetting, if you go up, it'll white out the sides. That never is like, maybe if you're in the snow, that might work. What I like to do is use the shading side. So I'm going to go back to 0 and I'm going to start bringing it in. If you go too far, you'll see it looks like you're looking through an eye scope. But what we want to do is bring it down just a hair. You can see it when you change it, but if you look away and come back to it, you really shouldn't be able to notice that you have put a vignette on there. But what happens is when you view this photo for the first time, your eye will naturally go to the lightest part of the photo, which in our case is the surfer. Remember, we highlighted her a little bit, and she's got that white board and the yellow jersey, which is the only yellow in the picture. And so our eye immediately goes to her and then works its way out. So it focuses us on the surfer. And in this case, we've got a nose sticker, which shows really well. And then our eye expands out to where she's going and it traces down the wave. I love those edits. I think that works really well. So the next thing I would do, because I like this, is I'm going to save it. Now, we don't save in Lightroom. You don't press save. You press export. And when you press export, it's going to give you an export screen that will allow you to choose where you want to go. Little word of caution, it's going to default to the last place you exported. So make sure you check that and it's going to the file you want. I generally will use a file system that is done by year, and the next file would be maybe month, or if you want to do month, you might have the name of your surfer, and then it might be the event they're at. In this case, it would have been a WSA Lowers event, and the date. And then under that subfile, I will put edited. So I'll drop all my edited ones there separately from the raw originals. And that way I can get back to the edited image or the original raw picture and work on more. Maybe in the sequence, the surfer might want to see the whole sequence, and I can just copy these edits and put it right in, which leads me to the next item here. In the lower right-hand corner here, and I'm going to have to move myself up a little bit so you can see this. Here's the original photo that we were working on right here. And this is what we came up with. Look at the change. This is the raw. This is the finished. Completely transformed this image. Really looks great, makes it pop. Now, to create a better workflow, I can right-click on my edited image. And I can go develop settings and then copy settings. And once I copy the settings, I can then paste them onto each new image that I'm making. I can just highlight the whole film strip and apply it to there. Or if I'm being careful, I can make a new image for each one. I copy image and then apply those settings. And I don't have to go through the same workflow. Done. Now, I generally don't do cropping and I don't do the masks when I copy and paste onto my next images. I find that though I like to do those individually, picture by picture. The exception being if we're doing an entire sequence, coming up, doing the hit, coming down, you might want to keep the same crop. Otherwise, everything else is the same and it shows up really well so that it's consistent. And consistency is always good. So that's it. That is Lightroom in a nutshell. It's really easy. There's a lot of other options that you can do as you go into, you can experiment as you get into things further down the line. There are certain presets that I like to play with. Here are some of them. This one is Grit. And this takes leaves the reds and the oranges, but it takes the blues and greens out. Here's one that is a black and white, but it leaves the red in. Kind of dramatic, different items. You can certainly do anything that you want with these images. And I really recommend that you play with them. There we go, back to our color. I recommend that you play with these images so that they're not always the same. Now remember, we're posting these for your sponsors' purposes. A, you're going to send them a copy. And B, you're going to post them on your Instagram. And in your Instagram, you're going to, remember, we're going to make a story. And then from the story, you want to drop them into whatever sponsor you want to highlight at the time. They're going to love your work on this. This is going to promote you as a surfer or your child as a surfer. And it's going to help you with your current sponsors, getting a sponsor, and getting more sponsors to show that you're producing these kind of stellar images that shows their brand. This is easy to do. It's a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed this part of the lesson called editing.